Hi everybody, welcome to Backstage at Line 6. So you might know me from doing some of the video content, or quite a bit of the video content for Line 6. But obviously, over the last sort of 12 months, I haven't been able to get out and see you guys. So it's a great opportunity to catch up with you. So I am joined by Eric Klein, who is the Chief Product Design Architect, who I believe is in California. It looks quite California. It's a very nice location wherever it is.
No, I actually snuck out to Hawaii last night. So.
Oh, nice. And I'm joined by Ben Adrian, who is the Sound Design Manager, who I believe is in Los Angeles.
Yes, correct. Right by Dodger Stadium.
Nice. And we have the Product Marketing Manager, who is Andy Paredes.
Great.
And I'm over here in not so sunny Newcastle, England. It's a great city, but I have to say I'm a little bit jealous of the Hawaiian location there.
My wife actually ran into a ball of fish this morning and swam smack dab into the face of a reef shark that was like 5 feet long this morning. So,
wow. Well, I had nothing like that happen to me this morning in Newcastle. I'm afraid. Yeah. So it's good to see that actually, even though I haven't been out there in California, you've still managed to do some work without me sort of keeping an eye on everybody. So obviously one of those big things this year was Helix 3.0. So congratulations on that, because it sounds it's fantastic. There's some great features and some great new models in there as well. So I think for this, we're just really going to talk a little bit about 3.0 and what everybody's favorite things are. So in terms of a free update, there's an awful lot of stuff in there. But in terms of those performance features, what do you think is the most important or your personal favorite things? And I'm probably going to direct this question at Andy to start with.
I think from the performance aspect, my favorite thing is the true preset spillover. And coming from the analog world where you might have one amp with a preamp and you switch in between presets, or some artists like to use two different amps, like a heavy sound and a clean sound, and they'll switch between them. I think for those players who come into the modeling world, that's kind of weird for them, because it takes time for preset A to get pulled out of the DSP and load preset B. So there's always that little bit of a gap. And the beauty of the true preset spillover, if you're comfortable with losing one of your signal paths, is you're basically always loading that next thing ahead. So to me, from a performance aspect, I absolutely love the true preset spillover. That's definitely my favorite thing. I mean, there's still artists in the world who run two processors side by side and A/B between the two because that, milliseconds just bothers them. So now you don't have to do that anymore. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's like two units in one. That's a great thing. And how about you, Eric? What was there?
Favorites for sure. It's all about workflow and trying to make things as fast and painless as humanly possible. And now if you can just select an empty block and spin the dial and the 5 or 6 things you use in every preset are just there, you don't have to dig through a list at all. It makes things a lot faster and easier. And the fact that you can name them now, if you want to name them after the real amp or the real pedal. And then I have my favorite pedals too. Like of a Maris Polymoon. And so what I can do is I can put the Maris Polymoon in effects loop 1, add an effects loop block, save it as a favorite, name it Maris Polymoon. So then I spin the dial and magically Angelo's pedal just shows up in my thing and named after the real thing. It just makes things a lot more fun, a lot easier. So
yeah, that is cool. It's a great thing, because I think like everybody else, I tend to stick to the same sort of sounds all the time. I have my default sounds, but I tell you what I hadn't done. I hadn't thought about actually naming them with the original with the original amps. So yeah, so I'm definitely learning something already. And I suppose obviously it makes a big difference what unit you have, because if you have HX Stomp, obviously your favorite feature is probably going to be the fact that you've got 8 blocks.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a big thing. I'm a big fan of HX Stomp, and it's just so portable. So having those 8 blocks has actually made a big difference to me, like immediately in terms of it actually being the thing that I kind of reach for first. Like now, so I think that's great. Yeah, I mean, in terms of models, we added a whole bunch of great new models in there as well. Like I have a couple of personal favorites, but I'm gonna jump in and ask Andy what his favorite models are.
I would say if I had to pick one, coming from metal, the kind of the classic metal setting is, you've got your high gain amp and then you have a tube screamer or some sort of overdrive in front of it. And so to me, that's been my go-to forever for my main, heavy sound. So I was really excited to see the Horizon drive being added. And I wasn't disappointed when I heard it, and I kind of put it, I replaced the tube screamer in my signal chain by, with the Horizon drive. And I think I'm going to be rewriting a lot of presets because it just sounds so good. Like without even really doing much tweaking, it just sounded really, really good. It's definitely got that kind of early tube screamer vibe, but it's definitely got its own character and flavor. And I'm just really, really excited about that one.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be one of the ones that I need to check out. And there's just so much stuff in there. It's like I need to sort of find the time to explore down that list and just get to some of those different things. It's like new Christmas presents and new birthday presents every time there is one of these updates. How about yourself, Ben? What's the coolest?
I was super excited to see the Ballistic Fuzz get in, which is a model of the ICBM fuzz made by a little company in Alameda, California called Euthymia Electronics. And it's special to me because I know the guy. It's just a one-man company, and I used to live in Alameda, and I know the guy, and we would hang out. But it's his version of an op-amp Big Muff, which is I would describe it as a little bit more harder-edged, more extreme Big Muff sound. So we got a chance to put it in, and another guy who works at Line 6, Barry Cleveland, famous author and former writer for big guitar magazines, had the pedal, and he was super stoked to get it in as well. And it's like this pedal that had a kind of cult following, like very, very small, but it hadn't really blown up yet until becoming a super expensive pedal, but it's on the precipice of that, I think. So I'm really excited that we're the first to get it into something, and it's just a huge, thick, wonderful fuzz that I love to play.
Yeah, it's great. I love the big horn fuzz as well. That's a great, big, thick sound from that. So it's funny. It's like it gets me more into sort of some of the pedals that are actually out there in I guess the real world as well, doesn't it? You kind of come across them in things like Helix, and kind of makes you a little bit more interested in, like fuzz things. For me, has not been something traditionally that I've been a sort of a big fan of. But I'm certainly getting into it. I'm certainly getting into it these days. And Eric, I think that one of your effects is one of my favorite ones as well. Which I'm going to let you say what it is, but your favorite effect in 3.0.
Well, so my favorite guitar effect, I have to probably agree with Andy. It's probably the Horizon Drive. My favorite effect, kind of overall, is probably the glitch delay, and not necessarily for guitars, even though I use it on guitars all the time. But I just throw it on stuff on a record now. I'll throw it on vocals or drums or synth lines or string pads or whatever, and it just gives it this weird sort of sparkle and makes it pop around, and it kind of sticks out, but sort of randomly. And on guitar, just the ability to go in and apply it to an already tracked guitar and actually control how much octaves there are. And we're adding extra cool things to glitch delay with 3.1 as well. People have asked, like, hey, can you do this? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. So Dan's going to go back and add some new features to that. So I'm never going to finish this record because I know what's coming out next. And like, I bet I could use that on the record.
I think I've been the same in the past as well. When I know what's coming out, I always kind of hold on and think, yeah, I'll just track those guitars. Yeah. I'll track those guitars later on.
Yeah.
I mean, glitch delay to me is it's absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. From the minute I first got the sort of beta version of 3.0, there's just weird sounds coming out of this room. I think my wife sits downstairs wondering what on earth's going on here, like a spaceship's landed or something. But
you got stuck in a glitch delay hole when you first heard it too, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He was like, I spent like 3 hours playing this. I'm like, yeah, I just like it's 10 o'clock at night. What happened? Yeah.
Yeah. I like it's almost like meditation. I almost just disappear off into a trance, and you only want to play one chord and see what the delay is going to do, and see exactly what's going to come back at you. But definitely the idea of putting that on drums and things as well. Maybe that's a whole new wormhole I can go down.
It's a lot of fun, yeah.
Experimentation, and then obviously
vocals. It's amazing on vocals.
I guess one of the other things that we haven't mentioned on 3.0 is obviously the poly pitch effect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a major thing in terms of Helix's sort of progression and stuff as well. You know, like suddenly being able to, you know, like play a chord and pitch shift every single one, you know, each of the notes where they all move in the same way. And, you know, whether you're assigning it to an expression pedal or just using it as a capo is a big deal. So where, I mean, I probably, in terms of the glitch delay as well, actually going back to that for a second, because it probably leads us on to the next question. Like the inspiration for glitch delay,
mm-hmm.
like where did that come from?
That came from Dan Godlovich from our Victoria, British Columbia. Dude's a genius. And so I have a meeting with him every Tuesday, or with that team every Tuesday, like 1:30, and he'll just throw these ideas out and like, yeah. And sometimes I ask him to draw me a graph to explain what he's talking about. Glitch delay was pretty straightforward. He's also a big math geek, and so there's this new delay in 3.1 that's based on some pretty complex math. And yeah, I still don't quite understand it, but he sent me a white paper, scientific paper. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. Now I have to figure out how to label the parameters and then explain it in the release notes to your average everyday schlub like myself.
Is that going to be another one?
Interesting.
Is that going to be another one where I'll lose weeks and weeks of my time into just
meditate? You might. It's if you're into math, then you're gonna like it. So.
Cool. And the reason why I brought why I went back to glitch delay there as well, because I know obviously the poly pitch effects were done by the team up in Victoria as well.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you can tell us about the team that's up in Victoria, like where they came from? Because I mean, they've been with us for a few years now, but they weren't there right from the start, were they? They actually were all brought on board to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think they've been here around a little over 2 years now. So I'd read an article. I mean, I pop online and I'll read industry gossip and that sort of thing. And I'd read that like a couple Crown amps were cleaning house. I'm a big fan of Crown, and AKG was going to start Vienna or Austrian Audio, and they've just released some great mics. And immediately I called Marcus and I'm like, dude, we have to get this Victoria team. They worked on the electrics repeater. They did the Trio Plus. They did all of the amazing pitch stuff that Digitech does. What's going on? And Marcus said, yeah, they left a couple weeks before they probably would have been let go anyway. And we're talking to them. I'm like, yeah. So it's no surprise that they came from Digitech, but they're the brain trust behind the really iconic stuff. But they had to redo the engine from scratch because we didn't actually acquire any IP from Digitech. So they had to start from scratch. But really, this is just the first Lego in a big house that they're building of algorithmic stuff that's not just, I mean, it's audio based, but then they're working on some control based stuff as well. And some of the stuff we're talking about is pretty hairy and a lot of fun. So really excited to see where this is going to go. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's great that we're not just modeling other people's gear as well. It's great. There's actually like, these sort of unique things coming out of there, and the things that might not be, might be very, very difficult to create somewhere else. You can actually find them inside Helix now. But in terms of the modeling, like how do we choose which pedals to model? Like where does that come from? Like where's the like when somebody goes to Ben and says, Ben, we need one of those. Like where does that idea come from? And I'm gonna ask Ben. Yeah, let's go.
So, I mean, there's a thing we have called Idea Scale that I hope that most people know about, where people can go online, vote for models they want, vote for features they want, and so on. So it comes from that a little bit, and then it comes from just Eric and other people involved in product specialization, looking around and seeing what people are asking for, what's a popular piece of gear, what some kind of functionality would be helpful. And then I'd say a little of it, maybe 10% is just someone in the shop has a crazy idea, or like really wants to get something in, or like there's a little bit of like our own edification where we can try this thing and have it like, whoa, what times do I do this, this, and this? And I'd say, maybe 10 to 15% of the models I get in, just someone really wants to see it in and who works at line 6. And we're lucky enough to be able to make time for ourselves to do that.
Yeah. And I guess, do we buy, obviously I've been to the Calabasas, I've seen the infamous display case full of gear. We obviously have a budget to be buying all of this stuff and storing it there.
Yeah, so if we have a specific piece of gear that we're modeling, say like an amp that we usually try to buy it and we want to own it. We want to always have it there, because if we come up with a better modeling technology, or we come up with the next generation product, or if we need to go in and touch something else, we can go to the exact unit that we modeled the first time around and model it again, or get it in finer detail, or try something else out with it. And it's just really good to own the gear. Occasionally we borrow gear from people or borrow gear from ourselves, but for the most part, it's just, if we're going to model a physical piece of gear, we'd like to own it. And some other stuff, it's like the glitch delay, or like the bandpass echo. What is it? The multipass echo. It just comes out of our heads, and it's like, we should try that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, some of those are my favorite. As I say, some of those are my favorite things. So when we buy this gear, does anybody get to sort of take it home at night and keep that?
Well, now that we're all working from home, yes, technically, I guess that's true. But no, when we're done modeling, it goes to line 6. We might end up borrowing it for something if someone really needs it. I'm lucky enough that if I really wanted to, I could probably take an amp home and record with it and then take it back. But for the most part, it just lives at work. We want to keep it safe. We don't want anything bad to happen. It's it'd be a liability if something broke or got damaged, especially for the vintage pieces.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I guess that kind of takes us nicely to something that I just found out a couple of days ago, which is the Princeton amp model in Helix 3.0. That actually belongs to you. That doesn't live at line 6, does it? That lives much closer to you, Ben.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm in my home studio right now, and you can actually see the Princeton is this right behind me. This is like, I've always loved Princetons. A lot of guitarists that I like use Princetons. And so I, kept my eye out for one. And the first thing I did when I got one, this is my main like play at home amp, or if I'm just kind of jamming with a buddy. First thing I did is I took it apart and I found all the parts that were kind of going bad, and I replaced it and tuned it up, and I added a bias adjustment so I could really fine tune the bias to the point that I like, so that the tremolo sounds good and that the amp responds the way I like. I went through all my tubes and I selected my favorite preamp tubes and put them in the slots that I thought they would work the best in. And so I think our amp model, the US Princess, is particularly good, not only because we've been doing this for like Helix modeling for 5 years now, but because I really took a long time tuning up the physical amp first before we actually started modeling it. So it's a really good specimen, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. So the one that you've got there, that's a 10-inch speaker in that one, is it? But we do so there's 2 cabinets. There's a 12-inch speaker as well. That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Mine has a 10-inch speaker. It's a kind of a high wattage 10-inch speaker that I chose specifically for the amp and just for my own tastes. And then another sound designer, Sam, has a limited edition Princeton that has a Alnico blue speaker in it, but it's a 12-inch. And we really like the way that sounds. And it's uncharacteristic for a Princeton to have a 12, but it's a very popular mod that people have done. So we decided that we would just model that cabinet as well as the 10-inch, and then people could choose, and it would just be more options, because why not? It's awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing a ton of stuff with that Princeton. I think that's what's going to happen to me. It's like I think that's going to be my new sort of go-to amp. I think with that 12-inch speaker, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Sam's obviously like yourself, an incredibly talented guy. I was blown away by Sam's knowledge at the last NAMM show, when we had a massive big conversation about vintage guitars just at the side of the stage in NAMM. That guy knows a lot. Yeah. He's a very knowledgeable guy on all kinds of things.
Yeah, we found him working in a retail shop for he did repairs and sold guitars, and he was just as big of a guitar nerd as anyone else. And that's kind of what we look. It's like you you have the technical knowledge and, you know, just kind of know the history of guitars and stuff. So it's really great to have that resource.
I think that's where kind of a lot of us came from. I certainly came from retail. I mean, I think I was just working out a couple of weeks ago. I've been working in guitar retail now for 26 years. Can you believe that?
Sure.
Just crazy, you know. I started in the store and I was doing work experience, and, you know, left, you know, like 12, 13 years later, and, you know, and then obviously came on board as a freelancer first with Line 6. But I think everybody's background's kind of the same. So, you know, I remember, you know, I very clearly remember my first Line 6 product, and again, it was the original, the very first pod, you know. And I think I felt like I was maybe, you know, like a Ben type character, like a sound design manager, because I had to buy the chip separately, and I got the tool, and it was you had to insert the chip to make it in the pod version 2, you know. And I felt like I had a background in sort of electronics from doing that. So, I mean, you guys must have owned Line 6 gear before you came to work with the company. I mean, Eric, what was your first Line 6 product?
That was an AX212 back in '97. Yeah. So early adopter.
Yeah.
And then I had the original pod, and I had the Pod Pro rack because it was in a studio, and then I ended up switching to Amp Farm and eventually Echo Farm, and that was my guitar tone for over a decade.
Yeah,
I didn't use hardware anymore because I could go in and then reamp and change amps and change tones afterwards. And if a client said, "Hey, I really like the guitar sound, but I was hoping more of a, you know, like a Fender type sound," it's like, "Oh, give me 5 minutes." You know, I just have to bounce it down.
It's such a cool thing. I mean, it must be amazing for you. I mean, I use Helix Native, you know, probably more than anything else. And the fact that I can easily switch the Helix Native sounds that I'm using and drag them into different HX devices, and, you know, take the hardware to a rehearsal and stuff like, it's just such a cool thing that we have that sort of little ecosystem where we can be moving presets around. But yeah, I mean, I was a massive big fan of Native. And then sort of, Ben, what was your first piece of Line 6 gear, and how old were you? How long ago was that?
How old was I? So it was Christmas of 1999. I got the Dl4 Delay Pedal, and I was kind of had a shoegaze 20s where I had giant pedal boards, and when I got the Dl4, it kind of, my pedal board shrunk to half just because it kind of could do so many textural sounds and so many warbles within the delays and such. It was just kind of a revolution for me, where it's just like, wow, this thing can do so much. I didn't even care that it was modeling or that it was a specific kind of analog versus digital technology. It just sounded great, and it had so many sounds and was so versatile. And it had the looper in it, which, you know, started a whole new kind of playing of music for me, which is, you know, being able to just grab a sound and throw it in wherever, and just kind of, I became, you know, Brian Eno overnight.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just still such a popular bit of gear, isn't it? Just the iconic green pedal. And I still see, you know, in like famous people's pedal boards, the rest of the range, you know, like often, you know, like see the purple pedal and the red one, and the, you know, the blue one, the whole range. And Andy, how about you? What was your first Line 6 bit of gear?
So, you know, it must have been 2004 or so. And at the time, you know, playing live, I was running 2 racks, and they were, you know, daisy chained together back and forth for control. And there was like 4 guitar cabinets. You know, I had a really hard time playing without at least 2 412s, but normally 4 412s was standard. And I remember we were playing with another band that was from overseas, and they were able to dial up their guitar sound extremely fast. I was, and it sounded awesome. So I went up on stage and looked at it, and it was this little red beam. So it was the XT series. So it was after XT had been released, and you know, the music store that I worked in at the time, we weren't a Line 6 dealer, so I had to go to the competing music store across town, which, if anybody has ever dealt with that, you know, it's very awkward to walk into your competitor's store to purchase something from them. But yeah, I was just blown away, and I actually would do recordings at rehearsal of my rig with like a 57, and then I would do kind of stuff at home with the Pod XT. And if I didn't label the tracks, I wouldn't be able to tell which one was which. And at that point, that was just like, all right, I'm in. You know, I'm gonna probably shed a lot of analog gear, because it just, if I can't even tell the difference and I'm the one who's playing it, then it doesn't matter. So yeah, I've been full on modeling for quite a while now, and I don't miss it at all. I don't miss dragging hardware around. I don't miss looking for that weird cable that's grounding out or like causing a relay issue. I don't miss it at all. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, with you know, again, for me, like getting that original pod and being able to record guitar tones at home without upsetting my parents. You know, back in 1998, I guess it was. But yeah, like amazing stuff. So I guess we're running out of time now. But I guess, is there anything that you guys can give away in terms of what might be next, what we might be working on? Any little hints or?
Well, let's see. I have an amp in my little tone shed right now for a 3-1, and let's just say it's a very
you can move the camera over if you want, Ben. Give them a little corner.
No, that's it. It's actually it's a different room. It's my office and my studio are actually separate shacks, but
so they wouldn't see what color the amp is then.
Yeah, it's a very distinct color.
Nice. And is there anything that you can add in terms of what's happening, or what's hopefully going to be happening, Eric?
Yeah. So I think HX Stomp guys are getting a couple things that they've been clamoring for forever. Mm-hmm. We were really debating on whether or not we wanted to announce 2 new products here at the NAMM show. We decided at the last second, no, we're gonna wait until they're ready and available in stores, which should be. Can I say what month, Andy?
The first half of the year.
First half. We'll say the first half of the year. I almost got fired there. No.
Sorry, Eric. I didn't want to lead you into anything that might get.
No. So yeah. So we're really excited. I mean, it's the fact that, you know, every time we do a firmware update, there will be close to 11 things that need to all get tested and updated at once. Mm-hmm. It's just an insane amount of work, and we love it, and then that's why we can't do updates every week, because we have to update 11 things, and we have to test, and we have to make sure that all of the things we add don't break anything in 11 things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So so we're really excited, and we already know what's going to be in 3.2, and 3.2 is even going to be bigger than 3.1. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I shall look forward to that, and I guess it's going to be great for, you know, when we actually announce a product, for somebody to actually be able to walk into a store and get it straight away without actually having to wait as well. That's going to be pretty good. So if there was a real show, we would have announced them. So this is kind of a messed up year, but yeah. Absolutely, and I mean, you know, I am a little bit in the know. I can say that both those products are absolutely awesome. They're, you know, again, some great things coming from the team over there. So I guess we need to wrap this up a little bit now. I think we're probably even a little bit over time there. So a pleasure to see you guys. Wish I was over.
We miss you, Paul.
Wish I was over in California and having, you know, like having my sort of usual January holiday out there. You know, that'd be fantastic. But I shall get on the next flight to Hawaii, because that looks fantastic.
You're always welcome.
Which island?
West Coast of the Big Island.
Oh,
right at Kealakekua Bay.
Nice.
Which is about 50 yards that way. So.
All right. I'm going to jump in the Pacific. I'll see you in a few days.
Well, thanks very much, guys. This was a pleasure. Great to see you. And hopefully, when the world gets back to normal, I'll get back out there and we can talk in person, and have a few beers.
Absolutely.
But for now, cheers, guys. Thank you for your time, and see you again. Cheers.
Thank you. See you guys.
See ya.